So my name is Jesse Gibens. I'll introduce myself a little bit more in a second. But today I'm going to be kind of talking about warm-ups, session playing, self-marketing, a couple practice tips, things I wish I knew about about being a musician whenever I was younger and starting to get into it. And if anyone has any questions at any time about trumpet playing, anything that we're covering, what color my eyes are, anything that y'all want to know, I'm happy to discuss anything as well. So a little bit about myself. I'm from North Mississippi. I grew up in a small rural town of about 6,000 people. There was one band program in the county, and I was lucky enough to live in the city that was able to have it. I started playing trumpet whenever I was in sixth grade, as most of us have. Currently, I'm in the final semester of my graduate studies at Middle Tennessee State University, which is just southeast of Nashville in Murfreesboro. I received my bachelor's degree in trumpet performance from the University of Mississippi in Oxford. I have a TikTok channel called Jesse G Trumpet, where I post a lot of videos about trumpet playing, horn arranging for studio sessions, transcriptions of popular TikTok sounds, and just trumpet lessons in general. I play on a weekly basis orchestral, Latin, brass quintet, jazz, classical solos, rock, R&B, hip hop music. For instance, next week, I know I have one recording session for a country song. I have my own recital. I'll be subbing with the Huntsville Symphony Orchestra. And so it's very important to me that I play and know about a lot of styles. So first thing I kind of want to talk about is my approach to warm-ups. And first I want to talk about the difference between a warm-up and fundamental practice. A warm-up itself can be, as Bud Herseth described it, I play one note, and depending on how that one note feels, I play a second note. And then that's opposed to the idea of like Michael Sachs, who has a full routine to his warm-up. And especially like a lot of the Bill Adam routine players that they have a full regiment routine and they go through it. And that kind of gets more into your fundamental practice. Since I play in so many genres, I like to have variations in my warm-up. I have 3 ideas that I like to keep in my warm-ups. However, I don't play the same exact routine every day. These three parts to my warm-up are long tones, flow studies, and articulation. And they're all focused on getting the air moving. So the long tones are going to be helping me to maintain a consistent airstream. Flow studies are going to be any simple line that gets the air to synchronize with the body and the brain so that you get your fingers moving and tongue moving in unison. And then lastly is articulation, which I will take these same flow study lines and swap between slurred and articulation. So if I'm playing just a simple scale, like a pentatonic scale, I'll play it really slowly, and then I'll repeat it, articulate it, and I'll repeat it a third time slurred. And so that's one of the ways that I can get my articulation and everything to bring my tongue into unison with my air stream and everything such as that. There's no right or wrong answer to what your warm-up is, as long as it works for you. My warm-ups are typically very short, 3 to 5 minutes, because I try to warm up and warm down as much as possible, and I play throughout the day, so I feel like I'm never quite warmed down. So, but if it's whatever you feel your warm-up needs to be, you are your best teacher, since you know physically what's going on with your body. A few ideas on practicing. The trumpet is totally a mental game, and you have to make sure that your head is in it. There's so many things about the trumpet that are physical, but it makes up about this much of the playing, whenever there's this whole other big sphere of trumpet playing that's just a mental game. If your head space is not in the right place, you're going to be more tense, and that will affect the physical side, but it's the mental part that trips most of us up, myself included. my headspace controls whether or not it's going to be a good day, quote unquote, or a bad day. And so getting yourself prepped mentally is as much part of practicing as actually playing the notes. As I'm playing, I'd like to make sure that I'm resting as much as I'm playing. And one of the things that helps me be honest about this is I like to record myself playing, and then I can listen back to it. And this guarantees that if I've played for 5 minutes and I listen to that 5-minute recording, I am resting at least that much. This also helps us to be our own teachers. And so we can listen back to that and hear things that we might not have heard in the moment. A lot of times in the moment, we're focused more on trying to make sure that the phrase is turned correctly, or we're playing the correct notes. And if we're listening back, we're not worried about all that. We can hear, oh, that D right there was a little flat. I need to make sure I make note of that. Or I don't think that I quite made that leap correctly and I wasn't quite centered on that high G. And so recording yourself as you practice is an invaluable tool. We have so many options of ways to record ourselves now. And so we have to. And listening is the most important part of practicing. And I don't mean necessarily even listening to yourself, but listening to others. Have a style and a tone concept in your mind before you want to play anything. If you're working on the Mahler 5 intro, for instance, you want to decide if you want to sound more like Phil Smith, or if I like Bud Herseth recording here, or pick a recording that you like, or just think, I like this part here, or I like this other aspect of this other recording. Explore those nuances. Try to dig in and see what you can pull out of it before you play. If you can imitate these nuances, you can take these favorite parts of playing and incorporate it into your own. And this is how you build a individual's tone. You have a style that still is true to the music. However, it's true to yourself as well. And you move past imitation. So I make I make the most of my living as a studio session player here as of late. In my undergraduate studies, I was much more focused on the orchestral side of playing, and I believe that I am a classical player at the root. However, as I was growing up, I'm listening to a lot of country music. I'm listening to a little bit of jazz that my grandfather would play me on his vinyl records. And so I grew up listening to Al Hurt, but also Johnny Cash with The Ring of Fire that had the trumpet intro in it. And so hearing all of this and being so close to New Orleans as well, doing all of this is really important to studio playing, because you have to have a flexibility in your styles and your playing abilities. You need to be able to know what swing is and how to play in a swing style, whether it be jazz or a shuffle, like in a country or a rock tune even. And so knowing these styles and being able to be, well, we like this, but we think we're going to go back and retrack everything with a swing groove. Is that okay with you? And just, yeah. And so you come in the next day and then you take all your music and then you swing it, and be able to listen to the drummer effectively, know what instruments that you're supposed to be listening to as you're playing. Also, blues soloing is a very vital part of being a studio musician. One of my first lessons I took with Benny Cheselsky in Nashville, he came and did a masterclass, and one of the things he was talking about was the pentatonic scale, and about how valuable it is to soloing. And he's like, it's pretty much, if the pentatonic scale won't cut it, then you don't need to solo over it. So like a Chicago style of playing, such as the band Chicago, not necessarily the city. They kind of revolutionized what the horn section was for a rock band, and listening to the way that they kind of articulate things versus the way another group is, kind of always paying attention to these nuances so that you can imitate it and incorporate it into your own writing and playing. Latin music and Latin music is as broad a term as like just saying jazz music, because there's so many subgenres of Latin music, such as like bachata, bolero, salsa, bossa novas. Having some familiarity that you can imitate when asked. And then orchestral playing, because sometimes they want to do like a small soundtrack-esque thing, or they're recording a rock tune, but they really like those calls from a Strauss piece that they don't remember the name of, and then you have to come up with and they're like, yeah, this 2001 A Space Odyssey, can you play that? Well, that's kind of what we want here. And so having just a large bank of knowledge in your mind to pull from, constantly be listening to music. We are musicians. If we don't enjoy listening, then we're in the wrong business. Next part of like studio session playing is being able to arrange your own charts for whatever they ask for. Typically, they'll want you to write out like a 4-piece horn chart, 2 trumpets, a tenor sax, and a bari sax or a trombone. And so this is where all of those years of theory are finally going to pay off for you. Typically, they'll give you a Nashville number chart. And so is anyone here familiar with the Nashville number, quote unquote, system? So it's everything that you learned in theory as far as scale degrees go. And so they'll have everything barred out. There'll just be a blank piece of paper. They'll have little lines to indicate where the measures are, and it'll be like 1, and they'll have like 4 dots over it. And that means that it's going to be a 1 chord, and they want you to play quarter notes. And then here it's going to be a 5 over 1. And that means they want you to play a 5 chord, and the bass player is going to play the root of the chord, the root of the key over it. And so if you're in the key of G, you're going to play a G, the band's going to play a G there, and the bass player is going to play a C. And that's just about it. There's a few more things about like how they indicate accents and things like that. But as long as you can remember your scale degrees, you can play the Nashville number system. It's a confusing system at first. However, in this day and age, I feel like it's really important for all musicians that are going to be doing any kind of commercial playing to have a rough idea of the Nashville number system. And luckily, since most of us are classically trained, we have an idea and we can kind of adapt pretty quickly. Another very important part to arranging is your voice leading. So all those projects that you've done about where you had to take this figured bass and make the choir spell it out for them, it does pay off, and it makes what you do sound very professional, because what they would have done is the keyboard player, or what it might have gone over there and just kind of chunked out what he thought the horn should do. Or sometimes it'll be the producer who just happens to know what notes are, and then he'll be like, all right, go C, D, E, and just have everyone moving in unison and parallel fifths. And so if you take it and just rearrange it a little bit, you can really look like a professional, even though all you did was just did your homework for theory class. Typically in most of my studio sessions, and I do a lot of lower level as far as public view, I do some stuff for smaller studios. However, I have worked for RCA Studio B for a little bit on a few sessions, but I'm dealing with mostly directly with the artists themselves, and not necessarily a middleman producer or a label or something like that. And so whenever they contact me, they'll send me a rough of the track, which will be either just the vocalist herself, like singing to a click track, or it will be what the previous session has been and just kind of roughly mixed together and sent to me. And then it'll be some notes that'll be like, in the chorus, we want a horn pad, and the verse, we want horn stabs on every other bar, and then do it all in the style of like the Memphis horns. And then so you got to go listen to the Memphis horns, then hear how they kind of voice things, and then incorporate that yourself. And then you get sometimes a day, sometimes a week. It just depends. And you just kind of write it out and bring that in. Whatever you bring in will not be what they'll want initially. There'll be several ideas that they'll like, and they'll cut some things out. I tend to always overwrite. I'll write much more than's needed, and then they'll cut it out in post. And if there's anything that they don't like, or if anything inspires them to come up with a better idea, they'll typically bring the musicians in, because typically it's a sax player that will double both instruments, and then myself that will double both instruments. And we'll go back into the control room. They'll say, all right, we like what you've done here, but can you do this? And they'll sing something to you. And this is where your oral skills come in. You need to be able to take what these people are going to sing to you and be able to sketch it out for yourself and the sax player, so that y'all can do it and then harmonize it on the fly. And so rough keyboard knowledge is great. Like if you took the intro piano class, keep it up a little bit so you know kind of how some of those voice leadings work. And for the 4-horn arrangements, as you're writing them yourself, what I like to do is I'll listen to the rough track. I'll figure out what key it's in first, and then I'll just kind of hum lines over it that I think would make a good horn section line. And then I'll write it out, and then I'll play it over the recording, and then I'll harmonize it. And so I usually will work in Logic, and just as we're going, I'll kind of play some lines and harmonize it, and then try to mix it into the background to see if it would work. That way I can make sure that if they're playing a rock groove and I'm over here playing like swung, like a swung blues lick or something, it wouldn't work together, even though it might in my head. And so it kind of just shows me, it kind of keeps me honest on that part. A majority of my studio session playing, I don't do a lot of sight reading skills. I don't use a lot of sight reading. However, I've done a small, I think I've done 2 sessions where they walked in and they handed me a chart and we played it. So it is important to be able to have those skills. But most of the time I bring in the chart that I've arranged myself, or my friend will bring in the chart, and we've both seen it ahead of time, luckily. There is a Nashville Reading Orchestra, however, not the Nashville Reading Orchestra, but a different one. And they do a lot of the movie and video game soundtracks, like all the soundtracks for Call of Duty, some Netflix movies, things like that. And they'll walk in and they'll have the day's session sent to them the day before, and they'll have all the music and they'll print it out, and they'll come in and they'll have maybe an hour or 2 the day before to be able to play it and look over it. And then they come in and they'll record for 6-8 hours. So, I mean, there's no way that they can actually play through everything. However, they do get to look over the hardest parts. And so, especially for things like that, you have to make sure that you have strong sight reading skills. Also, dancing. You gotta be able to dance. Today's Friday. I did a session on Monday. I knew it was going to be a music video and live studio tracking, but I did not know that they would want us to dance. I should have, but they looked around and was like, all right, horns, we need some choreography here. And so we had to like plan out choreography on the fly, which that was the first for me. That was the first music video I'd ever been a part of. We were doing an arrangement or a cover of Phil Collins' tune of Something Happened on the Way to Heaven. And he wanted to do his version of it. But yeah, it's you never know quite exactly what a studio session is going to look like unless that you already know the people that you're going to be working for, and that's a luxury if you do get that. Does anyone have any questions so far? All right. Let's see here. So self-marketing. There's a million ways to market yourself, and whichever one you feel is most authentic to you, that's what you should go with. The most important part of self-marketing is making sure that you're showing your true self to whomever you are marketing toward. One of my favorite things to have is business cards, because I like the face-to-face interaction. I like being able to go up to someone, shake their hand, introduce myself, talk to them for a little bit, and handing them a card to see if we might ever connect again in the future. It is very impressive whenever someone, especially someone our age, hands a business card to someone else, because I know lots of people that are my colleagues in school that think business cards are very old school, but they're very effective. It makes you look very professional and very impressive to people. I know, even though I have business cards and like to hand them out myself, I get impressed whenever someone hands me one. And so jams, going to any type of jam, whether or you're playing or not, meeting these other musicians that are doing the same thing you're doing and the same field or genres that you're looking to do it in, just getting to listen to them play, see how they carry themselves, their body language, and see how what you have that they also have, or in what you have that they don't, maybe. That's your strong suit. If you're listening to a big jazz jam in Nashville and you listen to everyone playing, everyone's up there, they play bebop lines, be like, all right, I don't know a lot of bebop, but I do like to play ballads, and I feel like I play ballads really well. Then come back another time, play a ballad, and just wow everybody. You don't have to necessarily beat everyone else that's up there at their game. Just make sure that whatever you're doing is authentic to you. I myself, I'm not a bebop guy. I don't like playing a lot of the fast ripping lines. I really like to play kind of smooth jazz is what I'm into right now. I'm and writing music for that. And so I don't try to go to a jam and play bebop lines. If we play a bebop tune, I kind of just do my best, but everything else, I just try to make sure that I feel like I'm playing what's true to me. My mic keeps falling. My apologies. Social media. Social media is a fickle mistress. My advice to anyone looking to get started on social media and build up a platform of any type of content, whether it's music or if you just like to dance or make funny jokes, pick a platform, one or more if you feel like it, but it's a lot of work, and create the kind of content that you're passionate about. I started by duetting videos and playing improvised solos or horn arrangements over them. I got started on TikTok during COVID. So in 2020, March, that Friday before we left for spring break, I was planning my senior recital. I had a dress rehearsal, and it was supposed to be after spring break. I was going to have one more little run through, and then that Tuesday was going to be it. And then I was going to play this big degree recital. I was very excited for it. I was very into classical music at the time. And then over spring break, COVID, all right, we're going to have another spring break. We're going to push your recital back a week. And then it kept getting pushed back until that was kind of it. And so that was very detrimental to me, and especially to my ego at the time. Not necessarily that it made me feel like I was bad, but at the time I was starting to get a few gigs. I was going to do this choral and orchestral premiere of a work of a local composer, and I thought that was just absolutely amazing that I would get to do that. I was going to get to play with the Ohio Light Opera Company for another season, and all of a sudden, in about a week's time, everything I saw about my future kind of faded away, and that hurt a lot. And so I stopped playing for a few months. I felt like I didn't have a lot of purpose on the horn, because if there's no one to play for, if there's no gigs, what's the point in me continuing to play this? I couldn't get past the darkness in front of my eyes to be able to see the future down the road. And so TikTok was the hot thing, and I was on it just wasting time. And I started to see a lot of these musicians on there. And They were in the same circumstances as me. They couldn't get out of their house, but they were making the most of it. They were sitting there, they were playing guitar, they were singing to an iPhone 6 inches from their face. They were getting online and doing these recording sessions, making songs, releasing music. And I saw that and I wanted to be a part of that because it looked like they were finding a way out of the darkness at the time. And so I knew nothing about recording. I bought a Scarlett Solo interface bundle that had this microphone and the single interface and the headphones and a mic stand and a cable. And I put that on the desk and I just started watching YouTube videos until I knew how to work any of it. Another point about my senior recital was we moved it from, because I still had to turn something in to be able to graduate because that was my degree recital. And so the pianist would record stuff on her phone and sent me like the backing track, and I had to play over it for my recital. I had to record myself doing it. And so I wanted to try to make sure it sounded really good. And so I had Logic. I had a MacBook and I was like, well, let's see what this is about. And so that's how I got started on Logic, out of necessity. And so whenever it got time for TikTok, I was like, all right, well, I can make this work. I can upload audio here and kind of play over it. And then I just have to figure out a way to do video editing. And, but out of necessity, I was able to learn all of these skills. And so I don't feel like, even though I was not playing as much as I would have liked to, don't feel like my time was wasted because I learned all these skills. And so I started duetting these videos. I saw I met new people on TikTok that I looked up to. I discovered a passion for Latin music, and I discovered a passion for R&B and hip hop music. And I really wanted to play over that. I feel like R&B is kind of the natural progression of at least jazz in the popular culture, because it incorporates a lot of the same language and chord progressions. And so I was like, I kind of want to work with some of these people. So maybe if I duet their videos with doing these arrangements, they'll follow me back and I can talk to them and see if I could work for some of them in the future. And so that's what I would do. I'd find a video, I would write some stuff out in MuseScore, and then I would record it and post a video. And they never got very popular in the mainstream. However, some of these artists would recognize it and they would get me a follow back and be like, hey, I really enjoy what you did with that. I think you're a great musician. And so that little bit of validation in such a dark time kind of just cemented me on TikTok. And so that's how I got some of my first studio sessions, was duetting people and them enjoying what I did. That my first session was for a small R&B artist that I met on TikTok. His name is Journal, JRNL, and I duetted one of his songs, and I got to play on his album. Had to figure out how to actually make GarageBand sound good instead of just sounding good enough. And then my second session ended up being probably one of the biggest ones I will do for a long time. And it was for Kimba and Coda the Friend. They're R&B artists from Brooklyn, East Coast and West Coast. And looking back now, I kind of cringe at it because I know some of the editing things I did, and there was 100 ways to do it better. But I guess that's life as a musician as well. But as you're making this content that you're passionate about and that you feel it shows who you are, something will kind of catch on a little bit. It might not go viral, but you'll see this video here gets 500 views and my usual ones get 200. Kind of lean into that then. And as long as you're still enjoying it, go with what's doing a little bit better. Keep doing whatever you want to do as in addition to it, but kind of focus on what's doing better, but keep experimenting, because you never know what the next big thing would be. The thing that kind of set my channel on a new path was I played Donda by Kanye. Was popular at the time, and so I kind of played that in a parking garage, and then it started doing really well. But compared to some of my videos, it was getting like 2,000 views, And then someone said, hey, can you post the sheet music to this? I was like, yeah, I know how to do that. I can put a picture over a video. So I did that, and then it got 100,000 views out of nowhere. And that kind of I was like, all right, so I can still do exactly what I want to do. I just have to put the sheet music at the top. And that's just kind of worked ever since. Here lately, I'm experimenting with 3D printing, because that's a resource that my school offers that I didn't know we had until here recently. The library here at MTSU has 8 3D printers, and they're free to use totally. All you have to do is take a 1-hour training course, and then you get to go in and you can use these printers anytime, as long as you sit with them. So making a mouthpiece takes about 3 hours. So that's when I do my homework. And also, I'm not sure if y'all are familiar about Venture mouthpieces. There are a newer company out right now. Their big selling point right now is the VenCAD software, which is something that you can download on your computer. And they have all these mouthpiece scans that you can go through, and you can create your own custom mouthpiece. And so, for instance, if I play a Bach 3C, I love the rim of it. I just wish the cut was a little deeper. There's a little slider. You can take it and you can make the cut just a little deeper. And be like, okay, now also I like a 24 throat myself. So I want a 24 throat on my 3C. I'm like, all right, throat 24. And then you can save that as a file. You can send that file to them and they will make it an actual mouthpiece. Or you can also save the STL file. And that's the file that you use for 3D printing. So that's what I do. I just save those files, and then I'll go 3D print them and see what makes a good mouthpiece. And that's how I kind of came across the double barrel trumpet mouthpiece. So there's plenty of silly things to do too to kind of keep it interesting. But one of the things I've been doing with these 3D printed mouthpieces right now is because they are very sturdy. They hold up very well. They are biodegradable, so after time they will break down a little bit, and so they're not a permanent solution like our mouthpieces are. However, I teach a lot of 6th graders, and I love to teach my 6th graders. Most of them are playing on God only knows what kind of mouthpiece: a King 5M, a Bach 10.5C, or one of them had a Schilke 20D. As a 6th grader, because this was a father's or grandfather's instrument, and that was what was in the case, and nobody had seen it before. And so I was wondering why their endurance was so poor, because I mean, I understand they're 6th graders, but usually, you can make it through like a line of a book, and they're like, I just can't. But their sound was huge. And so I would look at it and be like, all right, well, I think you should be something a little smaller, or get close to a 7C or a 5C for now. And so I can just go to the library and print them for free and give them to them for free. And so it saves them a ton of money. And I mean, it makes me look good. So it's a win-win for everybody. And so I don't remember how I got off on that. But yeah, just finding things to do on social media that are honest and true to yourself. Because if you just go on there and you're only doing it for views, you're only doing it for the trends, it makes you very cynical, and it can be a detriment to your mental health. Because if you're not enjoying what you're doing, and this goes for everything in life, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, it's going to eat away at you. And so no social media clout is worth destroying yourself. Some general musician tips. Treat every performance as if it might be your last. This is something that I took very much for granted in undergrad. I did not expect my last concerts to be my last concerts, because I still had like 23 more to go. And I will not get to perform with those ensembles unless I get to sub in or something in the future. But as a student, I will never get to play in those ensembles again. I'll never get that final concert in the hall that I wanted to, my senior recital. And so that is something that I wish I had gotten, but it has made me now value each concert, each performance session, everything I do. I can imagine it being my last, and it's that much sweeter. and also makes me work a little harder, because if you think it's will be your last performance, you don't want it to suck. So just try to never take any of your performances for granted, no matter how small they might be. And you never know what the future might hold, or if there'll be COVID round 17 by then. Another tip is to treat everyone as if they will be the next big thing. This is one of the first things I was told by a Nashville musician whenever I got into town. I went to this very small jam. I didn't even play. I just kind of wanted to meet people. And this guy watched me walk in at the very beginning of it, and I stayed for the entirety. And then as I was leaving, he walked up to me, introduced himself, and we started having a conversation. He said all these people that he's ever played for and everything, kind of talking about himself. And he's like, I just want you to know, he's like, it's very nice to meet you. Do you have a card or something on you so we can stay in touch? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, well, why me? And he said, well, that's number one rule in Nashville, baby. Everybody's going to be the next somebody. So treat everybody well. And so that's something that's kind of, that's something that's kind of stuck with me. And so you never know who of your peers will be the next, I don't know, Phil Smith or Rashawn Ross or something like that. And so it's important to treat them all well, and to really, that way, because I mean, if nothing else, in the future you can say, yeah, I went to school with Phil Smith over here. We're all on similar paths, and we should treat each other with as much respect as we possibly can for one another. We are all in these trenches together. You should also treat yourself with the respect you deserve. Imposter syndrome is real. This is whenever you're doing something that you don't feel qualified to do. Myself, for instance, this is a surreal opportunity, and I want you all to know that I'm sincerely grateful and humbled to be here with y'all and be able to talk to y'all whatsoever. And so I sincerely thank y'all. But it's okay to feel like maybe you don't deserve to be somewhere. That's natural. But what you shouldn't do is let that feeling force you to not do something. It's okay to make time for yourself and the things that you want to do as well, because this is the only way that you can combat burnout, which right now is one of the biggest things plaguing musicians. COVID, there's not as much gigs to go around. We're all competing for these things. We're trying to push ourselves even harder to make ourselves more marketable, and get ready for a future in the workplace. And it can be very tiring. And it's okay to, when you get home, to take a break, watch YouTube for an hour, scroll on TikTok. It's okay. You still, as long as you're getting everything you need to do done and you're not falling behind, you're still getting the time in on the horn, you're still getting your classwork done. It's okay to treat yourself a little bit with a little bit of time. That wasn't something I did in undergrad either. I was practicing 2 to 3 hours a day. After most days, I was playing 8 hours because I was in every ensemble that my school offered that had a trumpet in it. I was in symphony orchestra. I was in wind ensemble, jazz band. I was in the faculty brass quintet because they needed somebody and couldn't get anybody. I was the next best thing. I played for the choral program on a lot of their concerts. I was in the African drum and dance ensemble as a trumpet player. I played some Jamaican folk music for a recital because someone needed it. And so I was, any opportunity I could possibly get my hands on, I was on it. And I was also in the honors college at the time. And I was having to take these harder classes, write more papers, do more research, and work on a master's level thesis. And so I never made a lot of time for myself. And so looking back, I'm not surprised that I got burnt out at the end of COVID, because that was the first time I'd really taken a break, because I was forced to take a break. And that's not something that I wish to go down again. And so my advice sincerely is to make sure that you make a little bit of time for yourself throughout the week. And it's also not a bad idea to take a day off the horn too, especially if you're playing a lot. letting yourself heal is worth way more than that hour of bad practice that you would get if you're already feeling bad. Some just general thoughts on performing. It's hard to be a musician and an educator, as whether your performance or your education, whatever you would want to do in life. If you think you'll be a performer, you will definitely be a teacher. And if you think you'll be a teacher, you'll definitely be a performer. These things go hand in hand, and there's no way to escape both sides of it. Luckily, I absolutely love to teach. I did not realize that until I was in graduate school and I had some more teaching opportunities. But this is one of, luckily, I'm very passionate about both of them. However, our business is to bare our souls and evoke emotions in others. It is to inspire others, and it is no small task. Music is a very powerful medium because there's songs with words, but as trumpet players, we don't have the ability to portray in word the emotions we're trying to convey. And so we have to go another step further. And that is a lot of vulnerability that we give to our listeners. We go out on stage and we have all these things running through our minds, and we're nervous about making a mistake and what they'll think. And we're expected to go out there and give the performance of a lifetime and literally just bare our heart for everyone to see. It's hard. Carl Polnack gave a speech once where he said that we indeed are not entertainers. He was on a flight. And the person sitting beside him asked him what he did for a living. He said, well, I'm a pianist and I'm performing at Carnegie Hall here soon. And he said, oh, so you're in the entertainment industry. And he said, I'd never thought about that, how someone would tell me that and how I would react. And then he looked at him, he's like, no, I'm not in the entertainment industry. I am much closer to firefighters and EMTs. Firefighters rush in with no consideration of themselves, and they try to help people who are in their darkest hours. As musicians and educators, people come to us from all walks of life. They come to our classrooms, they come to our concerts, and sometimes we even go to them. We risk our own feelings of security. We risk being teased by others, and we risk relationships for the sake of others. When we perform, people can boo us off stage. That's not a likely thing, but I mean, it's a possibility. When you go take that gig 4 hours away, you leave behind your family, and you leave behind, my fiance is 4.5 hours away, and I went to grad school. She's finishing her undergraduate in music education, and I'm here, and I've been here for 2 years. And so, but this is what's right for our career. And so these are the sacrifices that we must make sometimes to be able to advance our own craft and also share what we've been working on with others. I'm sure a lot of y'all have seen this, and I'm sorry for the image quality, but to all music majors, if we were a medical school and you were here as a med student practicing appendectomies, you would take your work very seriously, because you would imagine that some night at 2 a.m., someone is going to waltz into your emergency room and you're going to have to save their life. Well, my friends, someday at 8 p.m., someone is going to walk into your concert hall and bring you a mind that is confused, a heart that is overwhelmed, and a soul that is weary. Whether they go out whole again will depend partly on how well you do your craft. Carl Polnack, he was the director of music division and member of the piano faculty at Boston University. He was the chair of Ithaca College of Music. He is retired now. He is a symphonian, as am I. And wonderful man. He has 2 great speeches out there that are much like this. One was given at TMEA, and this is the one that he gave to the freshman introduction at Boston University for the freshman class of music majors. But it's important that we see ourselves not as just musicians here to play the right notes on the paper. We are here to make music and to help others in doing so. I get to play for a company here in Nashville called Music for Seniors, and they hire musicians to go and do live entertainment at these assisted living homes. And typically they like to hear jazz. And so you get the Great American Songbook out and you go play Misty and All of Me and all these great tunes. And you just have fun. You play with backing tracks. They're not too hard on you. I have had someone that really disliked my flugelhorn and wanted me to play on a trumpet, a real instrument. I think he might have been a trumpet player. But I once had a gentleman that as I was finishing up and I was packing up, he walked up to me and he had kind of disclosed to me in the concert, because I was they were asking me where I was from, and I was kind of getting to know them a little bit. And he didn't remember where he was from. And he told me that he had dementia. And at the end of it, he walked up to me and he said that I hope I remember this tomorrow, that this has been great. And he said about how he remembers these songs from his childhood and it brought back so many great memories. And so that's what it's all about as musicians. It's moments like that we can bring a little bit of light into somebody's life. Yeah, it's cool to play high notes and it's cool to do all this stuff and dance on stage, but in reality, we're here to evoke emotion and to help bring light into the darkness. Does anyone have any questions about anything?
Someone take a look at the list.
Yeah, take a look at the list.
They made a list of questions that they can ask.
Are we at that point?
Yes.
Yeah, we're kind of at that point.
Okay.
I can keep rambling, but I just feel like it'll be more philosophical nonsense.
Okay. So, Lance, as we're going through these, just like strike through them, so we know which ones we've asked. You cool with that? Cool. I guess I'll ask the first question. Why did you pick the trumpet?
I picked the trumpet for a pretty silly reason. My cousin at the time played it. I thought he was kind of cool. And so I was like, I want to play the trumpet. And luckily, there was a trumpet in the family. A cousin of mine who was about 15 years older than me had purchased a trumpet whenever she was in school, and it was still in the family. And so I got a really good deal on arguably one of the finest Bach 37s I have ever played. It might just be because I've played it for so long, but it's the best Bach 37 I've ever played.
Kind of on the same topic, what kind of influenced you to go into music?
Whenever I was growing up, my band director was a very bad person. He berated and bullied a lot of his students. He has since passed away. However, he made me want to be better at music to spite him. And so that was a very bad reason to get into music at the beginning. However, I started taking lessons from the trumpet professor at the University of Mississippi whenever I was a junior in high school. And he was the exact opposite. He was one of the most kindest people I had ever met. And he showed me the power that was in music, because those lessons for 1 hour a week, I was a good musician, at least to him. And so that made everything else I was told for the rest of the week null and void. And I look forward to that hour each week. And then I realized I wanted to do that for other students. I wanted to be able to mentor people and be able to shine a little bit of light. Thank you.
Hey, Alex, you're muted.
What is something you recommend that musicians avoid? Thanks, Grant, by the way.
Something that musicians should avoid.
Yes.
Over practicing. That's a real problem. As well as I think just burnout in general, which over practicing can play into burnout, because if you're practicing all the time and you're never letting your lips heal, then eventually you're going to get very frustrated with your playing and you'll want to quit. and also mental burnout instead of just physical burnout. And I've kind of covered that a little bit, but just making sure that everything you're doing, that you're enjoying it. If you're not enjoying practicing, something's wrong. You're not practicing something right. You're practicing too much. Like there's something that you should address, because practicing shouldn't be this huge task that you have to do. And you don't even have to love all the music that you're necessarily practicing right now. One of the pieces on my upcoming recital is the Delarue Concertino. It is a bear. I do not enjoy practicing it because it's very hard. I enjoy playing it, but as far as like getting there and having to slow it down, it's very grueling. However, whenever I get frustrated, I just take a second and then I listen to it, and then I get in a better headspace, and then I enjoy it again. And so just making sure that you don't get burnt out.
Thanks.
Of course. Thank you.
Jalen?
A lot of my questions were answered just then and throughout the presentation. But I guess one that I would say is something like, when it comes to music performance, would you agree that it's more like who you know and not what you know?
Yes. So what I'm going to say, I don't want to be mistaken. The enemy of great is good. If something's good enough and you're content with that, you'll never be great. So whenever I say this, I don't mean being content with being good enough. However, if you are good enough to play the music and you know the right people, you can make a living as a musician. Keep striving. Strive to be great. However, you can get gigs as you are now. There's nothing stopping you. If you're good enough to play the music, you can have these gigs. And so it's very important to definitely know the people and get these connections. And that's why we market so hard, and so that we can get these connections and get more opportunities.
Let's see.
Is it?
Go ahead.
Oh, wait, Grant, were you gonna ask the question?
No, Lance, you go ahead. Talk good.
Okay. So you touched on when COVID hit and all that, and I generally like to ask people about that because a lot of people tend to change a lot of things with their life because of COVID. And I was wondering if, my window just closed. There we go. I was wondering, how did COVID like change how you approach like life, not just life in general, but how you approach like your practice?
Yeah. So before I practice a little less now. I no longer practice 3 hours a day. I play a lot during the day, and I feel like I don't want to overplay, because I started having a little bit of lip issues and kind of had like this weird nerve thing happening. And so I decided to play a little less. Like nerve damage and like tooth damage is one of my greatest fears in life. So I've tried to avoid that at all possible. And so I'm very conscious about how my body feels. And I try to just make the most out of everything. Very intentional practicing now. Even though I wasn't practicing a lot toward the beginning of COVID, I was still reading. I was reading a lot, like Wifrud's Collaborative Concepts book, the Hickman Pedagogy book. I was reading all of these things because I didn't necessarily want to play the instrument at the time. I still wanted to get more knowledgeable and learn things about it. And so being efficient in my practice, not only like physically efficient, but like mentally efficient, coming into practice with a game plan of like, I want to learn this section 10 beats a minute faster today than I could play it yesterday. And I would have a little notebook of like, if there was anything that I was needing to work up in tempo, I would have like measures 23 to 64, currently 60 beats a minute, needs to be 230. Today I'll bring it up 10. And so, and just being able, because also that's, you get a little bit of dopamine every time you check something off or you meet a goal. And so I learned to place goals for myself. That way I felt like I was achieving something at the time. At a time where I had nothing to really strive towards necessarily. Did that answer your question at all?
Oh yeah, it did. It was really good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You also kind of touched on this a little bit, and I guess we're proof of it. I saw you on TikTok from the Donda one that you made. That was the first one that I saw, and then I saw that you were friends with TJ, who's also here on TikTok. Yes. Yeah, and so then I added you. You added me back. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, and so that's when we discussed having you do this with us in one of our Trumpet Guild meetings. And so on that,
just a second. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Treat everybody as if they're the next somebody, because you never know what like opportunities may come out of it. I saw that he was a trumpet player or at least a musician or music major from his profile, and I was like, yeah, of course I'll have him back, because I like to have just contacts and like being able to have those kind of interactions. So if you everybody could be somebody, you just don't know them yet. Thank you. I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah, no, you're good. But kind of on that topic of TikTok, I'm going to assume you've reached the point where you can make money on TikTok. Correct. Is that sustainable as like extra cash, or is it just not? It's very iffy.
So the way that TikTok monetization works is that you get 3 cents per every 1,000 views.
Wow. Okay.
So I just had a video get 1 million views, and so I'll make about $30.
Wow.
If that was something that I could replicate regularly, then yes, of course. There's some creators out there that are making like a minimum wage living from TikTok. It's not really practical for me. I don't see TikTok as necessarily the end. It's a means to an end. It's like getting my name out there and getting, and plus I just enjoy it. And so if I get 3 cents today, it's just icing on the cake.
Yeah, that definitely answers my question well. Thank you.
YouTube, on the other hand, if you can get on YouTube, they do pay a decent amount. If you have 1,000 subscribers, you can start getting monetization. And also, I think they pay like a penny a view once you get ads. I think the video has to be 10 minutes long at least. And then they can put ads on it if it's not copyrighted material. Which a lot of what I do is copyrighted material.
I think that's all the questions I had. I mean, because a lot of everyone else kind of covered mine. So if you guys want to go ahead.
What's your what's your internship? I remember you said something about your
intern here soon. It'll be at a middle school and high school, about an hour from the college I'm at right now. Fantastic. And let's see. Yeah, it's just going to be a semester long, and after that, I plan to apply for grade 6 through 12 band positions, either Texas, Arkansas, or Florida. Florida specifically because it's close to Disney World.
Yeah, so, that's awesome.
But yeah, I'm excited for it though. I mean, I've got some connections already there, and they're excited for me to be there.
Fantastic. Is anyone thinking into going into the music business, either as a musician or like engineer, producer, manager, marketing, anything like that? Another thing that I do besides playing trumpet is I am an intern for a small record label in Nashville called Judy's Truck Stop Records. And I kind of am over marketing, social media marketing, and everything like that. One of the best things I did for that, if anyone has any interest, is edx.com, edx.com. There's a Berkeley class that you can take for free, and it's music business. It's intro to music business or something like that. It teaches you all about copyright laws, all of what good contracts look like, how to like some just general tips for managing artists. It has been invaluable to me, and also like just how I should be like treating myself as a musician as a business. And so there's some great things, and plus it's free, so you can like just click through. If you don't want to learn about copyright law, you don't have to, but it is something that it's important if you ever, and not even if you're trying to copyright your own works, if you're using copyrighted material, this lets you know how to go about it a little bit. And so you know what you can and cannot do. Like when a band gets like just uses an arrangement of a piece without getting a license or anything like that. This kind of helps you get a little insight into music business.
Speaking on the copyright stuff, there was actually a tune one of our jazz bands here played, and I recorded it to send to a few of my friends back home because they listened to the band. And I made it a private YouTube link, and I sent to them, and it said, even though it was private and it was an instrumental recording, it said copyrighted.
So on YouTube, it doesn't matter if it's copyrighted or not. They won't take it down. That just means you can't monetize it, which, and you probably wouldn't make money off it anyway. So don't you put anything on YouTube that you want, anything. If nothing else, it gives you like credibility as if, for instance, I played a lo-fi version of Misty on there because I wanted to prove to somebody that I like was a little bit of a pianist. I'm good enough to get by. And so I put it on YouTube and sent to him. It got copyright striked immediately, but I left it up. And so I can show it to people and be like, yeah, I do play a little bit of piano. Here's some of the stuff that I've done. And so, yeah, leave it up.
Cool.
Who was your trumpet idol, or who is? I know you talked about Phil Smith a few times.
Phil Smith is Dr. Arndt's trumpet idol here at MTSU. And so he talks about him a lot. Personally, of course, I love Bud Herseth. I love Rashawn Ross. I love his playing. I love him as a person. There's another trumpet player from Nashville. His name is Lorenzo Molina. He's only 30. He played with Arturo a little bit, and Arturo kind of helped him come over here. He is one of the nicest gentlemen I've ever met in my life. I got to play with him the other day, and so I'm still fangirling a little bit. Let's see. I also love Lee Morgan. I love the way he solos, his tone in that. Classically, I love Tina Thing Helseth. I love her soloistic playing. Orchestrally, I think Bud Herseth. Also really like Chris Martin's playing. Yeah, I have a bunch of them. Chuck Mangione. Love Chuck Mangione. I love the music that he wrote, like the way he would write music. He's kind of the inspiration of like me writing music myself, and so I have a ton of them.
Cool.
Anything else?
Alex.
Oh. Yes.
Or Jalen. Sorry.
My questions were answered in other questions and or answered throughout the presentation.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I tried to be very, very wide in it, and I'm glad that I covered pretty much everything that y'all needed to know.
So this is an oddly specific question.
Okay.
And I think I worded this very weirdly, and I don't know if you'll like get what I'm asking. Heck, I don't even know what I'm asking because it's so specific. But so I wrote down, how does your daily schedule go in regards to when you are actively like preparing for a studio session or a gig, and when you are like actively looking for like a place to do one of those things? So like when you are and when you're not, like
Okay.
in that.
If I ever have a session, so a lot of sessions will pay you what you're worth or what they think you're worth. So if you go in there and you do it in the first 2 tries, you're going to probably get full pay, whatever that is. If you go in there and you fumble around a lot, like I did on my first in-person session, they're going to dock it like $10. So my first session I went in, it was this producer who owns a studio. The name of the studio is Studio 19 in Franklin, Tennessee. He's an alumni of Ole Miss. That's how we were able to meet. And he said, hey, I have this chart coming in. It's 3 tunes. We're going to do 1, and then we'll do the other 2 on a different day. But here's the rough track, write the parts, and come in next week with a sax player, and we'll do it. And so I wrote the best parts I could come up with, and then walked in there And the thing about writing really good parts is they're usually really hard, and you're going to have to like play it once perfectly, and then you got to double track it and possibly triple track it. And not every one of those has to be perfect. And so if you mess up, you got to do it again. And so now I'm on like take number 6 of the double track, and I am about shot. And so pay was supposed to be 50. He docked it to 40 because he said he was going to have to pay his engineer extra. And so you want the sessions to be over as quick as possible. So because everybody is getting paid by the hour pretty much. And so on the days that I have one, I make sure to just get a really nice warm up in as early as I can. And that way I feel good for whenever I get there, because I usually have to drive. There's not a lot of recording studios in Murfreesboro themselves, and everything's about 45 minutes to an hour. So I'm going to have to travel a little bit. And so if I have a session, it's a light day. If I'm looking for one, I am like making TikTok videos. I'm reaching out to producers I know, getting on Facebook, scrolling through to see who needs a trumpet player, Googling trumpet player wanted, and just anything I can think of, trying to find a gig. And so it's always way more work on the back end than at the end of it. I guess on the front end, there's more work on the front end than the back end. So the search for gigs never stops.
It's an endless cycle.
It is.
Alex, you're muted again.
I think my last question is, let me find it. If there was one lesson you could have taught yourself about the trumpet, what would it be? Like something that you could have taught yourself whenever you first started out.
I wish I would have not. I wish I could have taught myself that the trumpet is not as hard as we make it out to be. The trumpet's a difficult instrument. However, it's more of a mental game. Physically, playing the trumpet, I mean, for instance, like we think a lot about our lips and like trying to place notes with our chops. The distance, the amount of movement from a C in the staff to a D in the staff is so minuscule. We couldn't force that to happen if we tried, like if we physically tried. It's muscle memory that we've built up. That's why 6th graders sound like 6th graders, because they don't have the muscle memory of those micro movements mastered yet. It's just like a toddler whenever they're learning to walk. And I use this analogy all the time with collegiate students, and they love it. You see a toddler getting up to walk, they have the muscles, like their muscles are strong enough to bring them to walk, but they're like this, and you're like, well, just stand straight, it'd be a whole lot easier. But no, they're trying to force every muscle fiber to move. That's what we do as trumpet players when we try to force everything to happen. Now when we walk, you don't even think about it. It's just like, all right, I'm going to move forward, all right, I'm going to do this octave slur. That's kind of to the point that you need to be mentally. And then of course, then you can fix the small little physical problems, like, all right, I need a little less tongue arch here, things like that. But it's if my mental was right, I wouldn't have to work near as hard on the physical. And so just that it's more mental than physical, I think, is what I would want to teach myself.
Cool. It's weird that you answer it that way, because I remember a couple of months ago, Dr. Buckner told me like a story exactly like that.
I am honored to be saying the same thing.
I kind of want to add on to that with the mental game. So Monday night when I had my senior recital, I ended up rushing a little bit of it more than I should have, and that kind of messed me up from double tonguing parts that should have been double tongued. So I just single tongued it, and my double tonguing isn't very good. It kind of sounds like a duck in my opinion. But yesterday I was actually playing in a trombone choir for the first time, and I double tongued on there just to see what it was like, and it was almost effortless. And I think Dr. Buckner, I think you answered this, but I'm just trying to get like a general consensus of it. Do you think it's like the size of it with the back pressure that kind of does that, or is it just a mental game with double tonguing on trumpet? Because like, what double tonguing on trumpet isn't good, but double tonguing on trombone is almost flawless. Can you hear me? Did I lag out?
I can hear you.
Okay, did I lag out or something?
No.
No.
Were you asking me or Dr.
Oh yeah,
Buckner?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I thought you said Dr. Buckner, and so I was just
Sorry. No, I was like, because I
Hey,
asked
Brett.
him the other day. My bad.
I'm not sure. I'm not a trombone player. I've played a little trombone. So I'm not sure exactly on the difference in the physical requirements of double tonguing on each. It could be mental. And the only reason I say that is because whenever I play classical, like solo repertoire right now, and I play jazz combo stuff, I am much more efficient when I play jazz. I can play for much longer. I'm not near as tense. And it's because I'm not as worried about certain things. And that was another thing that I've started to notice as I play more popular styles that are historically messier, and they don't have to be as precise as what's on the page. And so that's the only reason I say it might be mental. However, I'm definitely no expert on trombone.
That's all good. Sorry for the confusion.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Sorry about that.
Let's see. That's all that I have. Anybody else?
I think that was all the questions off of our list, minus the
Awesome.
ones that he kind of answered during the presentation.
Oh yeah, he answered like half the questions.
Yeah,
in the
great presentation.
It was a really good
Yeah.
presentation.
Thank y'all. I get to do a lot of it here in grad school. It's one of the things you have to look forward to if you decide to pursue graduate studies.
Mhm.
By the way, Ole Miss and Middle Tennessee are both fantastic graduate programs. I would highly recommend them.
When is your recital?
It is April 19th. This 1 week from last Tuesday.
Are you
So
going to stream it?
I should. Don't get me wrong in all of the things I say about the mental game. I know these things. However, I am just as guilty of it as any of us. Just because you know something and implementing it is totally different. And so I am very nervous to play some of these pieces because this is the first recital I've gotten to do since I was a junior. And so I will stream it. I promise. Cross my heart and whatnot. But yes.
Where could we find that?
It will be, I'll stream it on Facebook.
Okay.
And I know I'm friends with you, Grant. And so you can help me with that. It's my name is Jesse Gibens, JESSCGIBENS. And if you add me, I'll add you back, and y'all are more than welcome. We'll stream it on there.
Okay.
I am playing the Tartini concerto minus the second movement. I am doing the Neruda concerto in its entirety. We're going to have an intermission. We'll do the Delarue concertino. We'll do the Clark, the Southern Cross cornet solo. And then we will finish with Misty for trumpet and piano. It's a cool arrangement I found. It's really similar to the Turin Someone to Watch Over Me arrangement, how it's just very written out. It's similar to that, but it has a double time swing section in the middle for a solo. And so it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm very excited for it.
Ooh.
Let's see. Any last minute questions? Anybody else?
Yeah, anything at all.
I just missed the bottle twice. I was trying to throw it away.
Oh. Okay.
Honestly, I only had 2 questions because Alex took all mine. I couldn't think of anything else. And I tried really hard.
I do have one last question. You mentioned that you were in a sinfonian. How do you think that influenced your playing, or if it did at all?
A lot of the psychological aspects that I talk about, and about how a music affects people, and that a lot of that is heavily influenced by Phi Mu Alpha, and especially Carl Polnack, who is a brother. And so these are all things that we kind of discussed in Phi Mu Alpha and we discover. And so a lot of that comes from that. Playing necessarily not quite as much, but just the psychological aspects of how we take care of ourselves, and just things like that. Yeah. Long live.
Let's see. All right, Alex.
I think that's it. Thanks for coming. Thanks for
course.
having a good presentation, being
Great.
prepared. We appreciate that.
Sincerely,
Yeah.
thank you all so much for having me. It's the pleasure's all mine. It's an honor to be able to be here and speak with you all. If there's ever anything I can do for any of you, please reach out. A few of you have my contact information, phone, text, email, call, anything. Just y'all let me know. Seriously.
Cool. I will share that with all of them.
Fantastic.
Ready?
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much. Hope y'all have a great evening.
You too.
You too.
I'm going to start signing off now. Goodbye.
See y'all. Dr. Buckner, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Sir.
Thank you, Jesse. It was a great job.
Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
You too.